Good morning, everyone. So, ethical issues in HRM. Ethical issues are critical to understand, so we are able for a good progress in the organization, for the development of the organization. Heading forward, has all of my other friends have discussed how the development of an organization is important and so today I'll discuss what are the ethical issues in HR. Of all the organizational issues or problems, ethical issues are the most difficult ones to handle or deal with. Issues arise in employment, remuneration and benefits, industrial relations and health and safety. So there are 8 types of ethical issues, among which I am going to discuss few. As rest of them, my friend Joel will discuss with you. So, just taking the outline of it, the 8 types of ethical issues in HRM are race and disability, privacy issues, safety and health, restructuring and layoffs, employee responsibilities, performance appraisal, cash and incentive plans, job discrimination. So, the course outline for today's discussion is employee responsibilities among the 8 categories of ethical issues, performance appraisal, cash and incentive process, and job. So, starting from employee responsibility. Earlier we pointed the rights of employees corresponding to the rights and the responsibilities which employees owe to their employees. Responsibilities set ethical limits on their behavior and rights establish limits of the ethical behaviors of others. Now, what are the responsibilities that an employee owes? So, the employee owe responsibility to their families, to themselves and their moral integrity, to their profession, to the law and to the society at large. Obviously, employees face many cases of conflicting responsibilities in the workplace, as for instance, responsibility to one's employer versus obligation to public safety, or responsibility to one's profession or to the employer. Conflict also arises when the responsibility to self or family clashes with the responsibility towards employee. So, these are established principles which help the employee resolve such conflicts. For example, public safety should override the interest of employer and responsibility to one's profession is more sacred than loyalty to the employer. The issue relating to self versus employer is nothing but work-life balance, an issue that is assuming increasing importance these days. The next point, that as I discussed, that responsibilities set ethical limits on their behavior and rights establish limits of the ethical behaviors of others. And employees face many cases of conflicting responsibilities in the workplace. Moving ahead, the second point is performance appraisal. So performance appraisal lends itself to ethical issues. Assessment of an individual's performance is based on observation and judgment. HR managers are expected to observe the performance in order to judge its effectiveness. Yet, some HR managers assign performance rating based on the unrelated factors. For example, the employee is not loyal to the rater or the ratee belongs to a different caste or religion. Ethics should be cornerstone of the performance evaluation, and the overall objective of high ethical performance reviews should be provide an honest assessment of the performance and mutually develop a plan to improve the ratee's effectiveness. Next point is cash and incentives. So this include base salaries, annual incentive plans, long-term incentive plans, and executive perquisites. Base salaries. A base salary is the minimum amount you can expect to earn in exchange for your time or services. The HR function is often presumed to justify a higher level of base salaries or a higher percentage increase than what competitive practice calls for. In some cases, pressure is exerted to re-evaluate the position to a higher grade for the purpose of justifying a larger than normal increase. Now, annual incentive plans, a pay plan that rewards the accomplishment of specific rewards. Rewards usually are tied to expected results identified at the beginning of the performance cycle. The HR manager is often forced to design and administer top management incentive plans at higher rates than what the individuals deserve. Long-term incentive plans is a company policy that rewards employees for reaching specific goals that lead to increased shareholder value. A common rationale presented to the HR executive for bending the rules is fear of losing the outstanding executives. If higher incentives are not long-term incentive plans, just as with annual incentive plan, many HR executives have the responsibility managing and administering the firm's long-term incentive plans, but in consultation with the CEO and an external consultant. Executive perquisites are a form of auxiliary benefits that recognize the value of an executive and provide additional services usually unrelated to pay and performance. So ethical issues arise when the HR executive is put to pressure to favor top management, like their interest over those of other employees and investors. Their cost is often out of proportion to the value added. The responsibility of administrating these programs, executive perquisites make the ethical stand of the HR executive difficult because falls on the HR executives who must live with the excesses that often are practiced. Excesses often sound bizarre, as for example, the transport of a CEO's pet German Shepherd has the sole passenger carried on the manifest as G. Shepherd. Another story relates to a Bangalore-based loss-making public sector undertaking whose CEO spent rupees 20 lakh to get a swimming pool built at his residence. The next point is job discrimination, which refers to the making adverse decisions against employees or job applicants based on their membership in a certain group. 3 tests decide whether a decision is discriminatory or not. The first decision is based on the group membership and not on individual merit. Decision is the result of prejudice or false stereotype. Decision somehow harms those it is aimed at. So on this basis, a decision is discriminatory or not is decided. The most discriminatory practices having ethical implications are individual co-intentionally discriminate out of personal prejudice or on basis of stereotypes. For instance, requests from women to work in the production department may be rejected on the basis they do not understand machines. Second, organization can also discriminate. For example, a company has a policy not to place women in supervisory positions because men in the company do not want to receive orders from females. Third, discrimination on grounds of sex or race that violates people's basic moral rights and mocks the ideal of human moral equality. Firmly, workplace harassment, particularly of women, is a workplace discrimination. Coming to the first 3 categories of practice, the question that crops up is how are discriminatory practices unethical? And how to correct such discrimination? So how the discriminatory practices are unethical? Discrimination is unethical because it violates a person's basic morals, rights. Kantian theory, for example, holds that human beings should be treated as ends and never used merely as means. Thus, Canon principle implies each individual has a moral right to be treated as a free person equally to any other person, and that all individuals have a correlative moral duty to treat each other individual as a free and equal person. How to correct such discrimination? Experts have suggested a series of corrective interventions popularly called as affirmative actions. Affirmative actions include hiring people purely on job-related considerations, giving due representation to reserved categories, equal pay for equal work, offering job promotions on the basis of performance, and treating all employees fairly. Some of the affirmative actions are mandatory also. Hiring a minimum number of people belonging to disadvantaged sections, for example, is a legal requirement, so also equal pay for equal work. The role of HR manager is ensuring that affirmative actions are in place and better understood in the implication than making it explicit. So, concluding here, thank you everyone for listening patiently. Thank you so much.